How do you see this flare up between Pakistan and Afghanistan?
The flare up actually once more exposes Pakistan as a ringmaster of lies. This is the starting point of the destruction of Pakistan. The Khyber Pakhtunkhwa area has been struggling, demanding independence. The war for independence in Balochistan has been well recorded, it's been continuing. Pakistan is taking a kind of weird confidence in a brief lunch with President Trump. But Pakistan should also remember a very famous saying by Harry Truman, that if you want a friend in Washington, you should get a pet dog.
I think this is advantage India, this state, because it's a real politics and geopolitical changes have taken place in South Asia, especially after the Taliban come back. Pakistan have started also expelling the Afghani people out of Pakistan. That also raised the tension between the two countries. This tension between Pakistan and Afghanistan will continue to rise in the coming days. This integration of Pakistan is very much on the card.
The tap from China is now being shut. That is one of the great crises that Pakistan. China has now refused to fund the railway project, which is about $6 or $7 billion.
Sir, POK is also erupting.
The center cannot hold. When the center begins to crumble, when the credibility of the Pakistan state, which was never very high, begins to crumble, the basis of Pakistan's creation was an illogical and absurd idea.
Pakistan is not reading the writing on the walls, which is very clearly nowadays. You can see what happened in Nepal, in Sri Lanka, and in Bangladesh. All these are signs of the changing of regime.
In all these countries, rose in order to get regime change. In Pakistan, they are rising to get country change.
Foreign Minister of Afghanistan is here, and a flare up between Pakistan and Afghanistan. He's meeting the Indian leadership, NSA, Foreign Minister, and also it's very important because India has not officially recognized Taliban so far. And also in context of what is happening on the Durand line, there's a major tension between Pakistan and Afghanistan. And today we have learned that Pakistan has launched some airstrikes on Afghanistan. Today joining me is Mr. Akbar, who is the former Foreign Minister and a West Asia expert, a very prominent panel indeed. So thank you so much for joining us. So sir, my first question to you is on Afghanistan. How do you see this flare up between Pakistan and Afghanistan?
The flare up actually once more exposes Pakistan as a ringmaster of lies, basically working its policies on a strategy of illusions. Pakistan has just positioned itself very self-dramatically, but in my view absurdly, as a kind of the maestro of an Eastern NATO, which would be an Eastern Islamic NATO. It's an illusion that it has sold in order to find ways to cover up its bankruptcy or to maintain liquidity at a time when it has gone bankrupt. And I'm afraid those who have bought into this idea have done themselves no good. But that apart, the very first thing that this great defender of the faith does is to attack what is probably an Islamic country, which is Afghanistan. Pakistan has absolutely no morality, and this attack by Pakistan, which I'm sure will be sort of protected and justified by the same number of lies that Pakistan used during its provocative attack on India, which was successfully repelled. The same, bizarre concoction of lies will be used, but this time Pakistan has nowhere to hide. Afghanistan's foreign minister is here. This probably that also was an instrumental in choosing this particular moment. Pakistan wanted to send a signal, but if it wanted to send a signal, then I'm afraid it has backfired very badly.
Dr. Awwad, do you think Pakistan-Afghanistan tension is going to be, the highlight now in coming days.
Absolutely. I start where Mr. Akbar have left, because I think this is advantage India at this stage, because it's a real politics and geopolitical changes have taken place in South Asia, especially after the Taliban come back to power. Having said that, I would say because of the tension rising between Pakistan and the Pakistani Pashtun, especially the Pakistan-Afghanistan people connected with, and also the second part where Pakistan have started also expelling the Afghani people out of out of Pakistan. That also raised the tension between the two countries. Also, we have to take the wider perspective of the crisis in the South Asia. In fact, we have to see the Chinese angle to it. I believe that the corridor, or the economic corridor between Pakistan and Afghanistan and China have raised lots of tension and have brought the interested countries into the conflict, which has been there for years. I mean, if we've been covering Afghanistan for ages, and I mean, and I think Mr. Akbar also knows this, the fact that it's not always the Afghanistan was the issue for, or it's the terrorism. It's also the connectivity between the CIS country and the rest of the world, because of its rich in oil and gas. That's what made it a center of attraction. But Afghanistan's stability and angle of Afghanistan bringing it into the rule of the American interest in this West Asia and the South Asian affairs bring us to the forefront that this tension between Pakistan and Afghanistan will continue to rise in the coming days.
Mr. Akbar, one more question. You alluded in your remarks that Foreign Minister is here in Delhi. Do you think this also has irked Pakistan the way now? And are we nearing recognizing Taliban? Because India has not recognized Taliban as of now.
I mentioned this earlier, that obviously they chose this moment to send a signal, and this signal has backfired. But let me now touch upon the most important consequence of this attack in the historical perspective. And I think you can lay a marker that this is the starting point of the destruction of Pakistan. The split of Pakistan into various different countries. Already the tensions have been very obvious. The fissiparous tensions within Pakistan have been very obvious. The Khyber Pakhtunkhwa area has been struggling, demanding independence right from Abdul Ghaffar Khan's time. It has taken refresh momentum. The war for independence in Balochistan has been well recorded, it's been continuing. That is one of the reasons you mentioned the rare earths that China has now put into play, and which Pakistan is trying to fool America with. We must ask yourself a question: why did China never mine those rare earths? Because the situation is too fraught with danger. Pakistan is taking a kind of weird confidence in a brief lunch with President Trump, and is sort of puffing wings. I think the first relationship with Pakistan was established in 1949-50 by President Harry Truman, who welcomed Prime Minister Liaquat Khan to Washington, and in fact sent a plane to London to bring him there. But Pakistan should also remember a very famous saying by Harry Truman, that if you want a friend in Washington, you should get a pet dog.
So I think you will agree with this, sir.
Well, I agree, because Pakistan actually is feeling the heat and now thinking that they are playing a center in the West Asian affairs, firstly, and also in South Asian affairs, especially after the Sindoor operation, where we sent the American were appeasing the Pakistanis to such an extent that the Pakistani went into their head. I think what I'm trying to explain here is a very important point. Yes, this integration of Pakistan is very much on the card, but I think neutralization of Pakistan and nuclear power and ballistic missile is one of the priorities at the first step. But I believe the Pakistanis now, with the money coming from the Chinese, from the Gulf country, may feel that they are able to rebuild their industry or their military back. But I don't think that in the long run, Pakistan will be under advantage.
Well, I think
Sure.
the tap from China is now being shut. Okay. That is one of the great crises that Pakistan. China has now refused to fund the railway project, which is about $6 or $7 billion, because not only because of security, but because they are seeing corruption.
Yeah.
They're seeing wastage of the money, and they're seeing no hope of the money coming back. And China is careful. China, the most significant decision between Indo-China relations has been sort of pushed, even by media, I'm afraid, behind the curtain, which is the decision of China to sell rare earths to India. It's a phenomenal decision, which was taken in the...
Can you, sir, throw some light, because this is a little, untouched subject right now.
It has been, and I'm surprised it's untouched. This was one of the decisions that was taken in the revival of the relationships between two countries, and it is a very important gain that Prime Minister Modi has made in the relationship to China, because China is a primary source, along with Russia also, of rare earths, and rare earths are vital in most sensitive requirements. I can't say more than that.
I think the angle of China is very much important in this geopolitical changes, and I believe the rise of Taliban back in power, it's also an anti-China and anti-Pakistan policy, give us a very glimpse of the trends coming in South Asia, especially in terms of rising of fundamentalism and extremism.
Sir, POK is also erupting. We are seeing several images coming from Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. And again, there are statements coming from Indian side, especially with our Chief of Defence Staff. And do you see any movement happening on this front?
You see what happens, and this is the famous line of English poetry, the center cannot hold anymore. When the center begins to crumble, when the credibility of the Pakistan state, which was never very high, begins to crumble, the basis of Pakistan's creation was an illogical and absurd idea that religion can be the basis of nationalism, that Islam can be the basis of nationalism. If Islam was sufficient as a basis of nationalism, please explain to me why there would be 22 Arab countries. Not only do they have Islam in common, they have language in common. But political state formation is quite different from religion. Islam lives in a mosque. Islam doesn't live in a country. And this this idea was fragile, is today being exposed over and over again. So the people of Kashmir who were fooled, or those people in their part of occupied Kashmir who were fooled into believing this, now know the truth. The truth is that Pakistan is nothing but an acquisitive, corrupt military dictatorship which has seized the country's economy, which has taken over 60% of the country and is running a fragile and deeply corrupt state and holding it up with ideas of supremacism and fascism.
Let me make a small comment.
I want to make one point. Sir has made a strong point that Pakistan center is not holding. But at the other hand, Pakistan is trying to project that they are now close to Saudis. They just cracked a deal with them. They are having lunch at the White House. So don't you think this is a kind of a very contradictory situation?
That's why I was going to comment on this for two issues. First of all, what Mr. Akbar has said, that means any country based on religion is doomed to exist. That's a rule of history. We know about it. It can be applicable to Pakistan or Israel or any states on the world. The second part, which is very important, is Pakistan is not reading the writing on the walls, which is very clearly nowadays. You could see what happened in Nepal, in Sri Lanka, and in Bangladesh. All these are signs of the changing of regime. There is now a trend in the world that there will be some kind of instability, especially in terms of restructuring states and restructuring the whole world order. So I think Pakistan is going to fall into that trap, and if they are not able to manage themselves inside, I think there will be a big crisis inside Pakistan. The army has always been the shadow government of Pakistan throughout history, and we all know about it. No civilian government in Pakistan was able to continue a full terms in power. So therefore, that gives you an indication that even the Pakistani army are not unified, and they are all interfighting among because of the interest of the corruption, or because of the interest of conflict interests of many nations among the Pakistani top elites.
There is one significant difference between the upsurge that you saw in Sri Lanka, upsurge that you saw in Bangladesh, upsurge you saw in Philippines, and so on, in Nepal. In all these countries, what is called Gen X, or the young, Gen Z, sorry, Gen Z rose in order to get regime change. In Pakistan, they are rising to get country change.
So you are making very strong remarks on Pakistan.
No, this is it. This has been going on. Don't forget that one Pakistan president, Bhutto, bombed his own people. Today, I think this was in the 70s.
I think this happened, some incident.
No, 1970s.
Yeah.
The first exercise was the Pakistan
Bangladesh.
Air Force bombing its own people in West Pakistan.
Yes.
Of course, I'm not talking about what was then East Pakistan, Bangladesh. Okay, but even in West Pakistan, in Balochistan. So this is nothing new. This has run parallel to Pakistan's because the idea itself is non-sustainable and people know it.
So now moving to a little different subject, sir. India should not be worried about closeness between Pakistan and America. What do you say?
That, India is above worrying about minor infractions of history, right? India is not a weak power. And, countries have just because we have good relations with the country, it doesn't mean that that other country cannot have good relations with a neighbor. I mean, it's perfectly all right for China to have good relations or America to have good relations. Sometimes as friends, we might warn our friends that, look, you have not bought anything real, you have bought an illusion, but that is part of the diplomatic discourse. Eventually, what China has realized, Pakistan, America will take much shorter to realize, will realize much sooner, I mean.